Hello, twisted humans.
Do you find yourself wanting to know more about the latest murder, conspiracy, cult, or haunting?
Then this is the podcast for you. I'm Alecia.
And I'm Sierra, and this is
Twisted and Uncorked. Welcome to another episode of Twisted and Uncorked. This is episode 41. Woot woot. Hopefully you guys aren't sick of us yet, and because, you're still here. And just a friendly reminder that if you could pretty please go and leave us a 5-star rating and review on Podchaser, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Stitcher, Castbox. There's lots of options. Most of those are free. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It really does help us out, and if you want to send us a screenshot of your review, we would be more than happy to send you a little thank you in the mail. And stay tuned for some fun giveaways as well. A little bit more of an incentive to leave that review. What's your fun fact? Tell me something fun.
Okay, so you know what a palindrome is, right? Like when the word is the same spelled forward as it is backwards.
I did not know that that was what that was called, and I love it so much.
Yeah, so like Hannah, Hannah,
Yeah.
is same forward as it is backwards.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
Or Taco Cat, is that what it is? I'm pretty sure it's Taco Cat is Taco Cat backwards. Yeah. I don't understand that one. That's like a card game. Anyway, the fear...
Say, when would you ever use that sentence in real life?
It's in a card game. Yeah,
okay.
It's called something like that. But the fear of palindromes, whatever, however you say it, is called abophobia, which is spelled the same way forward as it is backwards.
That's so ironic.
Yeah.
I wonder if they did that on purpose.
They did do that on purpose.
Some fucked up, twisted human was like,
it was on purpose.
You're afraid of this and this is what you have.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So it's spelled AIBOHPHOBIA. Same forward as it is backwards.
That's rude. A brain fuck.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
What's
really
your
good
fun
one.
fact?
My fun fact is about something that I recently read that kind of blew my mind. Anne Frank, Martin Luther King Jr., and Barbara Walters were all born in the same year.
Wow.
Yeah, so these names are pretty well known all over the world, but just in case you needed a little reminder, Anne Frank was a victim of the Holocaust during World War II, becoming famous after her death in 1945 when her personal diary was discovered and published into a best-selling book. Have you ever read the Diary of Anne Frank?
In high school, or maybe it was elementary school, we had to read bits and pieces of it, yeah.
I read the whole thing by voluntary. My own nerdy self, I remember picking it up in grade 5, and because they have a bunch of those books that are famous diaries, so one of them was somebody on the Titanic. Anyway, so they were all really cool and creepy to me because I knew there were people that were dead, so of course the twisted little weirdo in me was like, ooh, let's read this. But rest in peace, sweet girl, because that was really sad either way, and nobody during that time deserved to be singled out like that and in such a disgusting
Nobody during
way.
any time.
Yeah, anytime.
Past, present, future.
Yeah, just don't fucking do it. Just leave people alone. Martin Luther King was obviously an American Baptist minister and activist who was the most visible spokesman and leader in the American Civil Rights Movement from 1955 until his assassination in 1968. And of course, Barbara Walters. Today she is 92 years old. Not actually today, today isn't her birthday. She was actually born on September 25th, so right in between us. And She looks phenomenal for her age. Anybody that hasn't seen Barbara Walters recently, do a quick Google search, because damn. She's a famous broadcast journalist, author, and TV personality. She's since retired, but she is still a badass and influences many journalists today. So Fun fact
That's
for you.
crazy.
Yeah, right? So random. And they were all born in 1929. Weird, hey?
Yeah, like that. Just imagine Anne Frank
Those
being
three
92
people,
years old today, Martin Luther King
right?
Jr. being 92 years old today. Like,
Would be
crazy.
weird. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of cool. And speaking of cool, this wine is our first fruit wine, and it's pretty damn good. It's
Yeah.
sweet and tart all at the same time, so it's a little bit confusing on your palate, but would definitely try it if you can. This one in particular is called Country Crush Natural Cranberry Wine. I'm actually drinking a local cranberry wine from Fort Langley because some jerk at the liquor store bought the last bottle of this bad boy that I had on hold. So,
How
anyways,
rude.
it's super rude. But cool things about this wine company in particular is that all of their wines are vegan, gluten-free, they have no artificial sweeteners, and they're made with 100% fruit. And fruit wines are made similarly to regular wine, obviously because it's made with grapes, which is still fruit, but flavors and aromas are extracted through a special maceration and enzyme extraction. That's not a word. Extraction. Then the wine is adjusted to the right sweetness and acidity level and naturally fermented with specific yeast strains and careful balancing because every fruit has a different fermentation process and timeline. So companies such as this that make multiple different types of fruit wines, it's a little bit more complicated. So very good
If
though.
you are a person who often has cranberry sauce on Thanksgiving, this tastes like someone took that can of cranberry sauce and like boiled it until it was liquid and then you drank it. Like,
Oh,
it just tastes like
it does really
cranberries.
taste like that. I'm really
Like,
I'm glad you said that.
seriously, it's just cranberry sauce in this cup, but somehow there's also 12% alcohol. So, we'll see.
It was fermented in some sort of way through the extractation, as I just said. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you get to laugh at our facial expressions every time we take a sip. So
Yeah.
enjoy. So today, for episode 41, I have a cult case. And Sierra pointed out to me that I have done 2 satanic cults for my last 2. So I'm going a different direction. It's a religious cult, but it's not satanic, and it's super fucked up. So I went back and forth on covering this one as my cults, but it came into my worlds in 2 other ways that were signs for me that I should. So I just decided to go ahead and do it.
I don't want to know how this came into your life
It
because
was
that sounds
so
scary.
So it was just like it kept appearing. So when I was, when Netflix pauses and you haven't watched it for a while and it goes through that screen where there's like images.
Right.
So one of them was a documentary about it. So that was sign number 1 after I had just read through a list of cults that I was playing with. The second one was I binged a lot of the new series on Netflix called Haunted. I would highly recommend it if anybody's not watched it. And they did a story of one man's experience in the same cult, and it's pretty heartbreaking. He was gay and put into a form of what I can only describe as a torture reform school to kind of get the gay out of him. So really fucked up. And then there's a third thing that I will mention at the end. So, and I also thought that those who survived deserve to have their stories told, and I think it outlines a lot of the damages in early religious practices that Sierra and I have talked about over and over again that I think are important to discuss. So without further ado, here is the story of the Children of God. So here's a little refresher for those of you that have heard of the Children of God or have not, and buckle up. So this cult was founded in Huntington Beach, California in 1968 by a man named David Berg. Over the years, this quote-unquote foundation has undergone a few name changes, such as the Teens for Christ, the Family of Love, the Family, And today it is known as the Family International, but for a brief period of time it was also the Children of God, and that is what it is famously known as. It is unclear why the name changed so many times, maybe because of it being disbanded, but today it is led by Karen Zerby since 1994. So it's still an ongoing cult, which is super fucked up. So to start, we'll start at the beginning like we always do. Who is David Berg? He was born on February 18th, 1919 in Oakland, California. He was the youngest of 3 children to Christian evangelists Halmer Emanuel Burr and Reverend Virginia Lee Brandt. Although he was raised in a Christian home, Virginia became an atheist and a wild society girl during her college years. However, shortly after the birth of her first child, she broke her back in an accident and spent the next 5 years disabled and bedridden, often hovering near death.
Okay, tell me her name again.
Reverend Virginia Lee Brandt.
Okay.
Eventually, she was able to make a full recovery, and she spent the rest of her life with her husband, Halmer, in an active Christian service as a pastor and an evangelist. Virginia and Halmer were no strangers to controversy, and they were actually expelled from the Disciples of Christ after publicly testifying of her divine healing, which was contrary to the church doctrine, and they subsequently joined a new denomination, the Christian and Missionary Alliance. According to David's accounts of his childhood, he was a... Hold on, I just need a drink for this one. He was a chronic masturbator. His mother tried to stop this on one occasion. She actually called the whole family into the room after catching him and ordered him to finish while they watched, as a way to hopefully humiliate him.
That is not
okay.
What you do.
No. It's
I'm
normal.
Married to a chronic masturbator. So, like, don't do that. We were literally just having a conversation earlier today about how when he was Christian and going to church every day of his teen life, he felt like a terrible human being because he wanted to masturbate. And he's
no,
like,
pleasure
it's ridiculous.
Is normal.
Why
and
is
should be?
Why would this person judge me for this?
As long as you're not doing it in a fucking state park, you're okay.
Just do it in your bedroom with the door shut.
Yeah, in the privacy of your own home. Don't do this. On another occasion, she actually held a knife to his penis and told him that if he did not stop, that she was going to cut it off.
Oh my God.
So also not okay. Although Virginia may have thought she was doing the best for her son, this sort of behavioral correcting in a really fucked up way, she was actually enforcing her son's love for deviant sex. David had also mentioned that when he was younger, his nanny performed sexual acts on him in order to get him to settle down before bed.
What
he mentioned
the fuck?
Yeah, this is so fucked up. I told that's why I needed a swig of wine before I pursued.
I don't know. I don't remember. I know I've heard of this cult before. I don't know if I knew this much background about him. However, I don't remember what is going to come up in this and how much I'm going to hate him. But at the moment, I feel so fucking bad for him.
Yes.
Like, is anything his fault? If these women in his life weren't so fucking awful, maybe he wouldn't have been.
Exactly.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I agree with that. Feel bad for young David. Absolutely. He mentioned this to his mom, and the nanny was fired immediately, of course.
Good.
On another account, he admitted to engaging in sexual acts with a cousin of his from the time that he was 7. This disturbed sexual behavior only gets worse, and we will get there. In addition to the abuse, he never had a stable childhood. His parents traveled often in their evangelical mission. Finally, in 1924, they settled in Miami, Florida, where their family would live for the next 14 years. His parents worked as pastors at a number of churches, and the family relied heavily on the support and generosity of the churchgoers, which forced the family to live with very little and to be as frugal as possible, a habit that David later passed on to his followers. Which isn't a bad thing. It's good to live, with what you need.
Right. In my deeply set, anxious brain, as I have children, I often wonder, and I'm curious to know if any other parents listening to this also have these same thoughts, what people would say if anything ever happened and my children were criminals about my raising of them. Because we've literally lived in, 6 different states so far. Even in each state, we lived in multiple different houses. Right now, where I live, currently, is the longest my child has ever been in one house.
Okay.
And it's 2.5 years.
But we used to provide a stable household.
Year. It's not... But what you just said... He didn't have a stable household. This is the same thing. It's not
stable. Well, his parents were fucking unstable. You're stable.
Well, I know, but you said because they were moving around a lot, and here I am. We literally used to only stay in a house for a year at a time and then go on to the next one. Sometimes only a state for a year at a time and go on to the next one. One time we were in a state for 6 months and then left.
Are you a professional mover then now?
No, I fucking hate moving.
No. I think in this sense, too, they were kind of free-spirited, not hippies, but they were very much go with wherever the world took them. And if they're not living with much, they don't necessarily have a stable house environment necessarily. And, he's forced to masturbate in front of his family, so.
Yeah, that's way different, of course. But, I'm just saying, my anxious brain is they're gonna say on a podcast one day when my children are criminals that I moved too much.
or they're gonna be like, it's because she had a true crime podcast and they fucking secretly listened to it or something. If you are a child, turn this off immediately. This is not for children.
Also, we do not condone crime.
Yes, know that either. Children listening to this and no crime.
Yes.
18 plus, guys. Get with it. Although David credits both of his parents to the inspiration behind his future group, his mom had a particular influence, as we have already demonstrated. And in the 1930s, his mother returned to her favorite ministry of a traveling evangelist, and David accompanied her for the next 10 years, acting as a song leader, assistant, and a chauffeur to his mother. So they kind of broke off from the family and went and did their own thing for a while.
Him and his mom? How did he not hate her?
David had also reported that one of his biggest regrets in life was not attempting to have a sexual relationship with his own mother.
No.
No.
It's just...
Yeah. It's a lot. Buckle up. Take a swig of wine. You're going to need it. During this time, they spent a lot of time together, like I said, and in a Mo letter titled Sex with Grandmother, he stated, quote, "And perhaps if I had not been so conservative and extremely narrow-minded in my theology and religion at that time, and so absolutely frightened by my mother's seeming abandon at the moment, I might have reacted a little bit differently, more responsively, and perhaps have satisfied us both on our tremendous sexual needs, and it could have developed into a beautiful sexual relationship." I'm just gonna go and vomit up my dinner. Just give me a moment.
No. This is...
Just no.
Just no.
It's icky. Just icky, yeah. These letters were how he later communicated with his cult members, by the way. They were called Mo letters. After graduation, he became a minister in the Christian and Missionary Alliance, but was later expelled for sexual misconduct with a church employee. Although he said it was because he supported a great racial diversity in his congregation. It's like, okay.
Yep, this part's coming back to me.
At first, his group consisted of a group of runaway hippies teenagers and young adults that he at first called the teens of Christ. As I mentioned at the head of this episode, it later became the children of God. At one point, there were up to 15,000 members from around the world. Members lived in isolation as a group, and they didn't work or send their kids to school. They referred to those living a normal life with jobs and going to school as systemites. The group melded the worship of Jesus Christ, 60s free love, and that the apocalypse was soon to come. And that was part of how he maintained loyal followers, is because they were so afraid of the incoming apocalypse that they felt like they had to listen to him.
Yeah, it's not cool.
No.
And how are they going to deal with it, I wonder?
The cult earned particular notoriety for its sexual practices. For example, David would order female followers to have sex with men in the group in order to bring them into the cult. He called this flirty fishing. This method brought in a lot of members, but it also caused a lot of members to leave. Cult sexual activity also included their children, permitting and even encouraging child sexual abuse. A former member mentioned in a later interview that it was not a safe place to grow up, especially if you were a girl, recalling fellow members being abused and raped growing up. Members were forced to rape young girls by initiation and forced by other members. That guilt haunted many past their membership in the cult, and many members were so tormented in the future that they took their own lives.
Goodness gracious.
So a toxic fucking place.
Yeah.
Many followers were disenchanted with the movement, and David, as the teachings became more and more sexual in nature. Flirty fishing came to an end in 1987 because of the external pressures to end the practice, the internal struggles women were feeling, and women who were more successful in their flirty fishing endeavors and brought in more groups were held in a higher regard than those who were not successful, as well as the extreme spread of STDs and the AIDS virus, because we're in the, mid-80s. So.
Was
and
his
this has
mom
been happening
alive for
since
his
the
cult?
60s. I couldn't find where she went after this. He just kind of went on his own.
I wonder if she approved.
I doubt it. If she'd read that quote, she probably would have wanted nothing to do with him ever. But who knows? She seemed disturbed in herself.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just feeding into this fucked up circle of just... I hate it. However, 300 children were born because of flirty fishing encounters by 1981. David referred to these children as, quote, Jesus babies. Ridiculous. Child rearing became
real catchy name.
Yeah, right. Jesus babies.
Fuck.
Child rearing became a very important aspect of life and teachings. A Moe letter titled "The Devil Hates Sex, But God Loves It" discusses both incest and pedophilia. It also discusses the ideas that these practices are in the Bible, yet the system has turned them into acts that are unnatural or taboo. So he's blaming the world, not that this is gross.
Also, I'm not saying Christianity is right, but the devil hates sex? I don't think that's right.
Since when? Well, because of the heavy, religious beliefs that were instilled into them. Obviously, Satan is used as a method of fear, so maybe that was his way of also pushing that they should just keep free loving, having sex.
Yeah, but also isn't... Listen, I'm not super religious, but isn't in the Bible it says, the only thing you're supposed to do is missionary? Sounds like God hates sex.
Quote, "When Paul said, 'All things are lawful unto me, but all things are not expedient,' he was as good as saying, quote, 'I can indulge in any kind of sex that I want to, but I've got to watch out for the system because it's against the law.' At least not let them find out that you do it. Yes, he said, against such there is no law. Against those things that they are done in love. How can there be any law against love? Well, because of the devil. He hates it. So the devil is saying that incest and everything is gross, but he is saying we should just follow God and show our love for each other through all of this religious belief. It's just very disturbed.
Yeah. It's one thing to just be like, love thy neighbor means no matter what. But it's a whole
He's
nother
saying
thing
love
to
thy
be like,
neighbor and thy children and
Yeah.
thy friends' children and thy friends.
and thy brother and thy
Yeah.
sister and
Yeah.
thy mother.
Yeah.
Jesus, fuck.
Literally. Just, ugh. Because he had such a strong hold on his followers' ideas of what love is, he was able to endorse incest and pedophilia. It also didn't hurt that he had frequently used Bible verses to justify these acts. And half of these Bible verses aren't even direct quotes. He's twisted them to make them whatever he needs them.
Well, I mean, that's all the Bible is. It's just people's interpretation of things that were said in different languages, so.
Exactly. This is a literal translation, too. So it's like, okay, come on. Also, his followers had continued a hatred for the system, who deemed the acts that they were permitting as taboo. So it just forced them further and further away from normalcy. It is worth noting that not all members of the Children of God engaged in, incestuous or, acts of pedophilia. As stated before, a great number had left, and some who did decide to stay were not acts, like these were not things that they would do, or they refused to. However, that had some problematic repercussions as well. Before I get into those horrible practices, we're going to take a quick commercial break. If you don't want to listen to ads, you can go on over to our Patreon for $1 a month and listen ad-free, or you can join at the $5 and $10 tiers and unlock all sorts of crazy shit. Sierra and I have recently done an overhaul, so all episodes that we release at the $10 tier will be available for 1 week at the $5 tier. So if you plan your life correctly, you can just get lots of episodes for $5. Your support means the world to us, and we couldn't do the show without you. And we will be right back. Welcome back to our episode on the horrendous cult of the Children of God. So, speaking of horrendous acts that would happen if you refused to participate in various cult activity, one child that grew up in the cult, named Christina Babin, described her time there as well as her escape. She described daily life as very strict and structured. Because they all lived in a commune, they got up, they prayed, and then all members that were able to would go out and beg for money and food on the street. They would also try and bring in new cult members. However, because of all of this, there was no room for traditional schooling. Most of the kids and teens that were a part of the cult or born into it had a maximum 5th grade education.
Goodness.
Some of them even less. Most of these kids were also trafficked and moved around the world and used to bring new members into the cult. Many of them never saw their parents or even knew where they were. The children were raised by all, and by 11, she was taught how to have sex. She was woken up in the middle of the night and brought into a couple's bedroom and taught how to have sex.
God, this sounds like a fucking Pizzagate conspiracy. This is real.
Yeah,
what
it's
the
horrible. I know. And, by 11, you don't even, some kids haven't even gone through puberty yet. That's so fucked up.
Yeah.
She felt like what she was doing was wrong, and she always thought that something was wrong with her. She was actually born into the cult. Her older brother was already a young baby when her mother had chosen to join, and the followers preached a good life, a better life for her and her children. So she always felt like something was wrong with her because she didn't like what she was doing. They were told to share God's love and practice sex in order to bring new members into the cult. And like I said, one horrifying aspect was when you refused. If you refused to have sex, you were put in a prison camp. Members that fought back were put here, and they were starved for days at a time. They were beaten and basically forced to sleep in cages. It's like poor babies. Real life. Herself and her brother were sent to one of these camps in the Philippines. And the only reason that they were able to get out is because people on the outside started to notice that these prison camps were being used, and raids were held all over the world, breaking these children and teens out. But they just were forced back into the communes and back into what they were doing. When Christina was 21 years old, she met her now husband while out working as a sex worker. Many of the women were expected to do this at night as a way of making money for the commune. Not because he was a customer, but because he wanted to just buy her a meal, which is really fucking sweet. They started dating, and he helped her break out of the cult. Only children 18 years and younger are forced to stay there against their will. After that, it's a lot harder. But living in a mental chain as well for 21 years is just as hard as a physical chain. And it's difficult to break out of that mindset, especially if that's all you've ever known. She still actively works with the FBI alongside her husband to bring the leaders and the people responsible for her torture to justice. However, it is hard because many of this happened in other countries, and to a certain extent, their hands are tied, which is so messed up, but probably why they organized the cult this way. A couple of famous previous members of the cult were Rose McGowan, which has been a big part of the Me Too movement, as well as actor Joaquin Phoenix. They were previous members of the cult that were able to break out as well. David Berg died in 1994. At the time of his death, he was under investigation from both Interpol and the FBI. His wife, Karen Zerbe, inherited the leadership, like I mentioned at the beginning, but was put under heavy scrutiny by 2005 after their son, Ricky Rodriguez, killed himself and another former member of the group. Ricky left the cult in adulthood, and his wife later told The Times that he wanted his mother prosecuted for child abuse. He also supported other women's accounts that Berg had sexually abused his own daughters and even his granddaughters, as an absolutely disgusting monster that he is. In 2004, the church again changed its name to the Family International in the years following David Berg's death. The group relaxed many of its demands and its followers in an apparent attempt to boost declining membership. Followers are now allowed to live in private homes and work outside of the cult. In 2009, the leadership announced that they no longer believed that the apocalypse was imminent, which they'd been preaching since fucking 1968. As a way of instilling fear into its followers. Like I said, the church still exists, and although its website says that the group underwent a reorganization in 2010 as an online community, it still claims to have upwards of 1,700 members still. So, my last little clue and bit to the story that I should cover it was our friends over at Wine, Dine, and Storytime did an incredible cult-themed episode over a month ago called It Was Difficult. Dana also covered the Children of God as well, but in a totally different subsect. You could literally make an entire podcast out of this cult and the things that happened over the years. But if you want to know more about this particular cult, she focused in on Ricky Rodriguez's life, so Karen and David's son, who had attacked and killed a previous cult member for sexually molesting him when he was a kid and then killing himself. So it just goes to show you the long-lasting torment that these people experienced. So that's just a totally different side, so I would encourage that you go and listen to that if you want a little bit more information. And shout out to our friends over there. That brings me to some further news as I come to an end on this case, because I am done talking about this horror. But we will be doing another super fun collaboration with them for a Christmas special bonus episode. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't already listened to our crossover that we did, I think back in July, go do that now. There's 2 episodes on either channel, and they were super fun. And yeah, that is the Children of God, and where you can get a little bit of a different subsect of the story.
Yeah, very interesting.
Very fucked up.
You know how I was like, God, this sounds like some Pizzagate shit.
It
That's
does.
because I'm pretty sure there is a subsect of it that is involved with Pizzagate. And I
Oh
didn't
my
realize
God,
that
I wouldn't
until
be
you said Rose
surprised.
McGowan, because Rose McGowan is very active in many different children's sex trafficking groups. I didn't realize
Yeah.
this was I knew she was part of a cult. I didn't realize it was this one.
Is this one, yeah.
But yeah, she is very active on Twitter and things like that in the, Pizzagate scandal and this and that. She, I don't know.
And I wouldn't be surprised because Christina Babin said that they were literally trafficked. Like, they were moved all over the world. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
Right. I don't know if she's saying Pizzagate is happening, but she is one of the people who says, stop saying Pizzagate is crazy because this shit does happen.
It absolutely
It might not
does.
be happening at that pizza shop, but it fucking happens.
Like Sierra said throughout this entire episode, this is real life. This happened to real people. Yeah. Thousands of people. And they often were able to bring people in by love bombing them. Like, accepting them and showering them with love and compliments and promises of a better life. Because many of these people were runaways or were, experiencing hardships. And they felt like they had nowhere else to go. So a lot of it was manipulation. And it was horrible.
That's crazy.
There's been many interviews over the years with people that have survived this. There's been many books that have been released about this. There's so many resources that it's crazy. Like I said, I could have done an entire series on this, but I really don't want to talk about David Berg anymore. So
I don't blame you.
Yeah, he is a monster. He's disgusting, and his wife Karen is no better. And even though floods of lawsuits have continued to come in, she refuses to take ownership over any of it. In fact, she says that many of the survivors are exaggerating their experiences in order to get book deals or funding for certain things, which, fuck you. You tortured people for years. So, that is crazy. Yeah. So, as always, if you like the show, as we know you do, because hi, you're still here, it would really help us out. Like I said, if you would go leave us a 5-star rating and review. If you want to do all of the above and, leave us a review everywhere and let your twisted flag fly, you do you, but it would really be great if you could. Also, if you want to support the show further, we just did a Patreon overhaul like I mentioned, so we would encourage you go check out the 60 plus exclusive bonus episodes that we have for you on there, plus super fun news that you had to wait for the end for. Sierra and I will be releasing 2 monthly segments at the $10 tier, hosted by each of us, so that's lots of fun, so stay tuned for that, and we promise you'll love it. It really means a lot to us that you help us release more content, the best audio, and keep this sweet grape nectar flowing, or in today's case, cranberry nectar. Finally, go follow us on social media. We've got Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We do lots of fun stuff over there too, such as Instagram lives, and we release all of our sangria recipes and, just let our dorky selves show. And you can find all of the sources and photos from today's episode, as well as all past episodes, on our website, twistedanduncorked.com. So yeah, what day is it today, Sierra?
Today is a very
Tell us
interesting
something
day.
Fun. Bring the episode back up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that.
Damn it.
Today is November 16th, and on this day in 1966, Dr. Sam Shepard was acquitted for the murder of his wife. I am not too sure how I feel about this one. I know I've heard the case covered before in the past.
It's coming back to me.
And I've always assumed, because of my underdog syndrome, I'm sure, that he was innocent. But I've never actually done the research myself. So I don't know if it's a happy he got acquitted or if it's a, he got acquitted.
Maybe we will cover it for a future case.
Right. Yeah. If you know the case, tell us what your opinion is. And if you don't, let us know if you want us to cover it.
Yeah. Email us at twistedanduncorked@gmail.com. You can also send your screenshots of the reviews you're going to leave us, and we'll send you something special. And you can just say hi, too. We love hearing from you guys. It really does mean a lot to know that not just our mothers are listening anymore. Thank you so much for listening. Don't do any of the horrors that we discussed in today's case. Stay away from charismatic cult leaders, and in the meantime, keep it twisted. Thank you for listening to Twisted and Uncorked Podcast. Remember, if you like the show, to go leave us a 5-star rating and review. We couldn't do it without you guys. Now stay tuned to hear about another cool podcast.
Hi, I'm Bernadette, the host from Murderific True Crime Podcast, coming to you from the state of Maine, USA. We are a bi-weekly podcast and discuss stories from Maine, New England, and all over the world. Our stories focus on domestic abuse, mass murder, familicides, cults, serial killers, kidnappings, and lesser-known cases. Murderific is easy to find on all podcast apps, or go to murderific.com. Give Murderific a try. Remember, murder and horrific equals Murderific.